T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
It takes this shit sin.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
It takes this shit sin.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT, man. And on tonight's episode, There's a lot of things that we have to discuss going on in the NFL world. We know Stefon Diggs just got traded to the Houston Texans. How long is he going to remain in Houston, though? He's scheduled to become a free agent at the end of next season. The Houston Texans decided to get rid of the remaining deals that he had on his deal. And this is pretty much a one-year rental. And the reason why he got traded for Buffalo is because he wasn't getting along with Josh Allen. Him and Josh Allen got into it early during last season. And he's just one of those players that is known to be a drama queen. He has that diva label on him. He goes to Houston now with a young nucleus of talent. C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, got a young, up-and-coming, rising coach in D'Amico Ryans. How is he going to mesh in that Texans culture? Also got some thoughts on Russell Wilson. I think that a lot of Steelers fans are really delusional with what version of Russell Wilson they believe they're going to see this year. OBJ, I saw a tweet about him on X that made me really upset. But when I sat back and thought about it, I don't know if this guy is being honest, if he's a OBJ hater or whatnot. But his tweet, I actually agree with it. We're going to answer some questions inside of the JT Sports Mailbag. Who are the NFL's biggest scam artists? Quarterbacks that are scamming their NFL teams. Should the Bengals draft Brock Bowers? And what are the 3 overrated and underrated prospects, in my opinion, in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft? Before we dive into it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember that we're not just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast, and you can find this episode and all the others in audio format on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. If you have a question that you would like answered on a future episode of the pod, you can send them on Instagram at JT_Sports_ or on X at JT_Sports__. Remember to send those questions in the DMs or add us on any of those platforms to potentially get your question featured on a mailbag episode. Before we get into it, here's a word from our partner, Mint Mobile. Does it piss you off how much you pay for your monthly phone bill? Why are you getting frustrated when our partner Mint Mobile has plans as low as $15 a month that give you unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network? Stop getting frustrated with how much you spend on your monthly phone bill and go to trymintmobile.com/JT Sports in description and pin comment down below to get access to premium wireless for only $15 a month. That's only $15 a month. Switching to Mint is easy. It only takes 15 minutes to do. If you're pissed off with how much you pay for your monthly phone bill, switch to Mint Mobile today and go to trymintmobile.com/JT Sports in description and pin comment down below to get premium wireless for only $15 a month. Stop getting upset with how much you spend on your monthly phone bill and switch to Mint Mobile today. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Shout out to my guy, Sean Accurate. Shout out to Dubs, A Hundo. Shout out to everybody in the live chat, man. Stefon Diggs is now a member of the Houston Texans. And the big question that we all want to know about Stefon is, how is this going to work with him in the Houston Texans locker room? Is he going to be a diva in Houston like he has been in his previous 2 stops in Buffalo and the Minnesota Vikings? There was a story that came out a few days ago that I read about how him and Josh Allen got into a verbal spat early during last season after a loss. Josh Allen had to tell him, "Bro, it's just one fucking game." And Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen, they just never really had a great relationship. And I always felt like Stefon Diggs and Buffalo was always a weird fit. When you think of Stefon Diggs, you think of this big name receiver and a pretty small to medium-sized media market. And I always felt that it was just an awkward fit. Him going to Houston, I'm not expecting any drama out of him. I would be extremely shocked if Stefon Diggs gets into any kind of verbal spat with CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is one of those people who you got to be pretty much an asshole to not get along with him. All right, he has a really likable personality. Everybody on his team loves him. There was a game last year where one of the Broncos linebackers had just gently shoved CJ Stroud after the play, and the whole entire offensive line was getting ready to take this dude's career away from him, pretty much. So if Stefon Diggs comes at CJ Stroud any kind of way in front of the team, I'm pretty sure it's not going to vote well for him in terms of his likability and the locker room. Stefon Diggs with the Houston Texans has the opportunity to become a mentor, an OG to the younger receivers that the Texans have on their roster. Nico Collins just had a big breakout season. How can he maintain that success? We've seen so many receivers in the past have big breakout seasons early in their careers, like Juju Smith-Schuster, and then they just fade away, never to be heard from again. Stefon Diggs would be a good mentor to have for a guy like Nico Collins when it comes to learning how to maintain success. Tank Dell, him and Tank already have a phenomenal friendship. They hang out off the field. They work out with each other. I believe that Stefon Diggs in Houston is going to be a really great fit. This is a really good culture for a guy like him. All right, you have a locker room full of players who you are more relatable to. Not to say that Josh Allen isn't relatable to some extent, but CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, I believe they have way more in common with Stefon Diggs than what a guy like Josh Allen did. And CJ Stroud is just so much more of a better leader than what Josh Allen is. Josh Allen is a great quarterback. He's a solid leader. But there are times when I do feel like some of his leadership is severely lacking in crucial moments of the games, especially his decision-making. CJ is more cool, calm, and collected. And if Stefon Diggs has an issue or there's some tensions on the sideline, CJ Stroud is better to handle those situations because he's not as much of a rocket ship as a guy like Josh Allen is. I've seen Josh Allen go 0 to 100 real quick. CJ is he's more mellow. He's more relaxed. It takes a lot to really get CJ Stroud riled up, especially if you're one of his teammates. If Stefon Diggs gets into any kind of issues in Houston, it should probably be the end of his career. There is just way too many young guys on this team for Stefon Diggs to not be able to get along with. He's not expected to be the superstar anymore. Of course, you Texans fans are expecting him to look like how he has looked the last couple of years, but he's getting up there in age. I'm not saying he's going to completely fall off the cliff. He is a Hall of Fame caliber player. Hall of Fame caliber players, they regress at a slower rate than normal. The thing with Stefon Diggs is that you have so many other good young receivers around you that you don't have to be the primary go-to wide receiver anymore. All right? Your job is to just get open, and if defenses decide to key in on you, guess what that does? It makes things easier for Collins and Tank Dell. And it also is going to make things easier for Stefon Diggs because you're not going to have to worry about getting double covered as much because you double cover Stefon. Shoot, what are you going to do about Nico and Tank and Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon on the ground? I love this fit. I am always going to root for Stefon Diggs. He's one of my favorite players to watch. Even though I don't agree with how he handles himself at times, you know, he is a dramatic player, super emotional, plays with his heart on his sleeve. And guys like this can be easily misunderstood, and they're not for everybody. Stefon, for him to last it as long as what he did in Buffalo was a huge surprise to me. Let's not make it seem like Buffalo is one of those places that everybody just wants to go to. You remember when Antonio Brown got traded to Buffalo and he retired, and then they said, never mind, and then he got traded to the Raiders? Nobody really wants to go to Buffalo if you have any options. Going to Houston, better weather, more relatable players in the locker room, and you got DeMeco Ryans, who probably is going to be better at getting the most out of Stefon Diggs than a guy like Sean McDermott. This just is a better culture fit for Stefon than what it was for him in Buffalo. I'm not expecting him to be a cancer in Houston's locker room at all. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, man, are living in the past, bro. Russell Wilson has you guys sipping on that Kool-Aid. Every time I log into Reddit or X and I see Steelers fans talking about how good is Russell Wilson going to be this year, there are some of you guys who honestly believe that we're going to get prime Seattle Seahawks version of Russell Wilson in the black and gold this season. And I have to say that you guys are truly delusional. You really are. That version of Russell Wilson that we saw in Seattle is never coming back. It's over. It's done. It's dead. Put a fork in it. All right, we're not going to see any more of Seattle's version of Russ. The version of Russell Wilson that we see this season is going to be a watered down version of him. Is he going to be completely terrible? No, he's not. Is he going to be better from what the Steelers have had at the quarterback position in previous years? Yes, but that's not saying much. The Steelers had a guy at quarterback who was a professional duck caller. His name was Duck Hodges. Being better than that is not really too much to brag about. Being better than Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and Mitchell Trubisky, the bar isn't too high. Having average quarterback play in the AFC North this year, if Lamar and Joe Burrow stay healthy, is not going to be good enough for Pittsburgh to get to the postseason. You really need Russell Wilson to play at a top 15 level. He didn't play at that level last season with Denver or the year previously. You can say Denver failed Russell Wilson. He didn't have a great team around him. But he was one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the National Football League. When you get paid that amount of money that Denver gave Russ after they traded for him, you are expected to overcome certain limitations. When you're paid like a top quarterback, you have to play like one. And Russ didn't play like one. He played like a middle-of-the-road quarterback. There's a reason why Denver took the NFL's largest dead cap hit in history to cut him. If the dude was still a great quarterback, he still would be on the team. The Seahawks version of Russell Wilson is never coming back. Even Seattle knew it. If they thought that he still had a few great years left in the tank, do you really think they would have traded him away? That's one of the biggest, most one-sided trades in league history. Seattle took Russell Wilson and flipped him, and now they're on the verge of coming a better quarterback shy of becoming Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. The Denver Broncos, they still continue to be a crapshoot of a franchise because they just can't get quarterback right. And you can't fault them for gambling on Russell Wilson. At the time, it didn't seem like a gamble. It seemed as close to a sure thing as you could get. You were confident that things were going to work out for Russell Wilson. But remember, the expectations for him in Denver were to win the Super Bowl. And when you get that elite label placed on you, if you're Russ, you're supposed to be able to elevate the team. Russ couldn't elevate anybody. You saw Russell Wilson that Father Time, he was knocking on that damn door and he was coming to collect. And he's still coming to collect. Y'all seem to make it seem like Russell Wilson is about to just inject some damn Captain American super soldier serum and he's just going to rewind the clock back to 2016 and he's just going to look way younger. He's going to play faster. He's going to look more agile. Russell Wilson has regressed physically. His playing style has always been based on moving around, extending or buying time for guys to get open. When a large part of your game is based on athleticism and you start to lose that, you become a worse quarterback. Russell Wilson isn't one of those QBs that is just going to sit in the pocket and just dissect your defense all day long. He's not that kind of QB. We're in the AFC North, people. The Ravens, the Browns, both of those two teams had top 5, top 10 defenses last year. Who cares if the Steelers were able to beat the Ravens even when they had Lamar and the Browns when they had Deshaun? It's a new season. You can't live based off last year. Every team is going to get better. You may feel like you've gotten better at quarterback, but have you gotten better enough that it truly is going to be able to catapult you to a deep playoff run this year? I don't think so. The expectations for Russell Wilson are insanely unrealistic, in my opinion, for Steeler fans. It really is. You guys make it seem like we're about to get MVP Seattle version of Russ. We're not even getting Russ anymore. We're getting Russell. We can't even call him Russell Wilson anymore because the quarterback that I saw the last 2 years in Denver didn't look anything like the Russell Wilson I've been accustomed to seeing the majority of my years watching the NFL. I don't recognize this Russell Wilson. This might be a clone. You know, for now, I got to just call him Russell. I can't call him Russell Wilson or Russ. I got to call him Russell. Russell, to me, is going to give Pittsburgh okay, decent QB play this year. And it probably isn't going to be good enough to get them into the playoffs. It most likely will be the first time in Mike Tomlin's coaching career the Steelers have a losing season. Yeah, Russell Wilson is a big get for Pittsburgh, but the dude doesn't make the quarterback situation any different for this franchise than what it has been the last couple of years. You still have debatably the worst quarterback in the division. He's not better than Lamar. He's not better than Joe Burrow. And would you take Russell Wilson right now over Deshaun? I probably still would take Deshaun. So I'm not expecting anything out of Russell Wilson. I don't know what a lot of you Steeler fans that keep gassing this dude up see, but I think Russell Wilson is done. I don't think he has anything left in the tank. Is he going to be terrible? No, but he's not going to be good enough to lead the Steelers to anything more than what they've been doing the last couple of years. This franchise has been running in place for over a decade, and they continue to keep running in place by getting an upgrade at quarterback, but a marginal upgrade at best. Russell Wilson doesn't make the Steelers that much better as a team this season as the QB as compared to last year's team with Kenny Pickett. If he was that good, Denver wouldn't have made NFL history to get rid of him. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember that we are not just a YouTube channel, we are a podcast, and you can find every episode of the pod in audio format on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Follow us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram at JT Sports _ and on X at JT Sports __. If you have a question that you would like answered on a future episode, you can send them in the DMs or add us on Instagram, JT Sports _ or X at JT Sports __. I'll be back real quick. I got to turn the light back on. Okay, so on tap, we still have a lot of things to discuss on this episode tonight. OBJ, I seen a tweet about him not too long ago that made me really upset because I'm a really big Odell Beckham Jr. fan. He's one of my favorite players ever. And when I first seen the tweet, I thought the guy was just an OBJ hater. But when I sat back and thought about it, regardless if the dude is a hater or not, he was spitting facts. I got prospect evaluations and scouting reports for Drake Maye and Bo Nix. We're also going to be diving into the JT Sports Mailbag. What quarterbacks in the National Football League right now are scamming their teams? Should the Cincinnati Bengals draft Brock Bowers? Who are 3 overrated and underrated prospects in the upcoming 2024 NFL Draft? We have so much to get into. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Shout out to everybody tuned in live. Man, we got a lot of things to get into, man. So what's next? Okay. A couple of nights ago, I came across this tweet on X that made me really upset about OBJ. Bleacher Report had reported that OBJ was going to be a post-June release by the Baltimore Ravens. And this guy, Jared Bailey, tweets out, I say this with no disrespect to him whatsoever because it isn't his fault, the most overrated player in the history of the sport. And when I first seen this, I instantly went to the keyboard on my iPhone and I was typing up a storm. I was about to cuss this dude out for coming at OBJ like this. But then, I took 10 seconds to breathe and collect my thoughts. And the more I thought about it, the more I had to come to the reality that this dude, Jay Bailey NFL on X, is actually right. OBJ, as much as I love him, he is the most overrated player in NFL history. 15 years from now, when my kids come up to me and they ask me, hey, Dad, how good was Odell Beckham Jr.? And I'm going to ask them, what makes you ask that question? He's not playing anymore. Well, Dad, he's so popular. He has so many followers. Everybody knows him. So how good was he? And I'm going to have to tell them the harsh truth. I'm going to have to say, sons, the story of Odell Beckham Jr. is one of the saddest in NFL history. You talk about one of the most talented wide receivers to ever play the game. Hall of Fame level talent, but won't be a Hall of Famer. Why? Because a lot of Odell Beckham Jr.'s hype and popularity has solely been based mainly off one moment, one defining play of his career. And that's that one-handed grab that he had Sunday Night Football years ago against the Dallas Cowboys. It went viral, and that play alone catapulted OBJ not just to a superstar in the NFL, but a pop star, a pop figure icon in the sense, or a pop culture icon. So OBJ, his popularity just kind of exceeds how good he actually is, at least right now in the current stage of his career. Of course, we remember the Super Bowl with the Rams where he got off to that hot start. And if he never would have got injured, I really believe he would have won Super Bowl MVP with the way that game was going. It was going through Odell. That was the offense. And after that injury, the Rams offense struggled until the final minutes of the fourth quarter when they woke up. If you believe that OBJ was dealt a bad hand due to injuries or the Cleveland Browns situation not really working out for him, those, to me, are valid excuses for OBJ. But no matter how many excuses you make for OBJ, you're still going to have to come to the reality that unless he just flips the switch the last remaining years that he has left on his playing career, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. But yet he's going to be one of the most recognizable athletes ever. OBJ may be one of the only few NFL players that could go overseas to Japan or China or Africa, and nearly everybody on the street knows who they are, knows who he is. They can recognize his face. Only two people who probably could do that is Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. That's how popular OBJ is. But the popularity, the hype, just hasn't met the on-the-field play. It hasn't met the production that he's been putting up. Hell, he had over 500 and something receiving yards for Baltimore. Didn't really get injured that much when you look at his injury history on paper. But if you watched every Baltimore game from the first game to the final game, for the first couple of weeks, OBJ was always getting injured. He was always getting sent to the locker room. And then when the Ravens were actually able to get him healthy, it's like you only heard of him sparingly. He had a big play against the Cincinnati Bengals. He'll have some splash moments here and there that'll give you flashes to the past. But other than that, man, OBJ these last couple of years hasn't really given us a lot of memorable moments. And the last time I can recall OBJ being in that discussion, truly being one of the best receivers in the game, it's been nearly 5 years. I was a freshman in high school. Odell Beckham Jr., whoever is this Jared Bailey dude on X, you're 110% right. Even though I don't want to agree with you, if you're just looking at this from a logical standpoint, just the popularity, the hype machine that Odell Beckham Jr. is, every time you talk about him, he generates clicks, he generates ratings, he generates revenue. But when you look at the contract the Ravens gave him last year, $19 million, and he only gave him 500 and something receiving yards, a few touchdowns, that was it, a couple of splash plays, that was a big finesse on his behalf. If he didn't have that one-handed catch, you wonder just what would his actual stock be? When you pay for OBJ, I don't feel like you're paying for what he currently is now as a player, per se. I think now you're paying more for, what he used to be. You're paying for name, you're paying for brand, you're paying for merchandising, you're paying for publicity. That's what you get when you sign Odell, because you don't really get anything on the field. One of the most popular players to ever play the game of football, and he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame talent. Injuries definitely derailed his career. I'll never forget the whole boat situation when him and a couple of other teammates were on that boat before that playoff game that they had, and he came out and him and the whole entire team just laid an egg. He had a couple of big drops. Also, the fight he had with Josh Norman during the game. There's just a lot of things with Odell Beckham Jr.'s career that we really could spend a lot of time talking about. But ultimately, I just think that the dude is really talented. When you think about OBJ 20 years from now, you'll say he's not in the Hall of Fame. But, when this dude first entered the league, his first 3-4 years, he was one of the most talented wide receivers of that time. And I still believe he's one of the best receivers ever from just a pure skill point standpoint, from what he could do after the catch, how good of a route runner he was. He was a jack of all trades wideout and a really special talent before injuries and ultimately the publicity and hype just got too much. And he hasn't been able to live up to that. And that's why Odell Beckham Jr. is the most overrated player, in my opinion, in the history of the NFL. Drake Maye is labeled with that boom or bust tab. Every year, there's always a quarterback prospect that people say is going to be boom. He could be really good if he lands in the right situation, or he could be really awful and bust if he just lands in the wrong spot or just isn't good at all. Drake Maye has been the root of a lot of these boom or bust discussions. And there's been a lot of talk lately about Drake Maye being the quarterback prospect in this year's draft who most likely could be a bust. All right. So on this segment, I'm here to give my evaluation on Drake Maye, my breakdown and my scouting report on him, and how I feel he's going to fare at the next level. When we look at Drake Maye's strengths, this dude has high-end arm talent. He can make every single throw. You know, a few months ago, it's funny, people were making really hard sold arguments about Drake Maye being better than Caleb Williams. And for a moment, those arguments were actually, they had some merit. Because you watch Caleb Williams and you watch Drake Maye during his 2022 campaign and early 2023, and you say there's not a single throw that Caleb Williams can make that Drake Maye can't make. And you're definitely right. And even now, I still feel that way about Drake Maye. There was one throw I seen him make to one of his receivers who also is in this draft. His name skips my mind, but he wears number 5. He's in the draft, and he threw a 40-yard fadeaway touchdown to him. He can make every single throw inside the pocket and tight windows, crazy throws outside of the pocket, outside the structure. He has an insane arm. Not just is his arm strength really good, but his arm talent, the ability to throw from different angles, from different platforms. He can do it all. He's a good playmaker outside of the pocket as well. This is a really big dude. I call him Baby Josh Allen. And one thing that I love about Drake Maye is that he has hella guts. He's not afraid to put his shoulder down and run through somebody for a first down. He puts caution to the wind. Just watching this dude play gives me one of those old school Brett Favre-esque kind of flashbacks. Not saying that he is Brett Favre, but he has that kind of playing style. When he just throws caution to the risk, he's throwing his body on the line. He's not afraid to get hit. He can take some big hits too because he has a really good frame, really good size, and a good amount of people in the scouting community think that he could get to 240, maybe 250, and that's effing scary. So with how gutsy of a runner he is, that's a good reason why he's so great outside of the pocket. I feel there's certain moments when he's better outside of the pocket than he is when he's within it. And his ceiling, his potential is really high. He could be one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Hell, he could be as good and have just as good as a career to what Caleb Williams could have. Because there's not a single play, a single throw that I watch Caleb Williams make and I say Drake Maye can't do the same. So those are the strengths of Drake Maye's game. But the big red flags that people have about him and why there are so many split opinions about him in this year, he has a chaotic playing style. All right, I said earlier, this dude throws caution to the winds. He plays like he doesn't give a damn, pretty much. I mean, there are certain throws that he'll make into double coverage and you'll say, what were you doing? And then there's certain moments when he's under pressure, he's breaking out of sacks, and then he'll run into a guy, or, he'll make a good play, he'll break a few tackles, maybe run a guy over. It's a roller coaster ride when you watch Drake Maye play. Early in the season against South Carolina, he looked really good. But then when they played Duke and Virginia, I don't know if this was even the same quarterback I was watching. I mean, he was throwing passes into the dirt. I'm talking about not just, I can understand, overthrowing or underthrowing a 40, 50-yard pass downfield. But it concerns me when you're throwing balls, skipping balls into the dirt on 4 or 5-yard drags and slants. And it's not like Carolina's offense was anything spectacular this year. It wasn't really that creative. They were either doing curls, slants, drags, or everybody was running 9 routes downfield. That seemed to be the root of their offense pretty much. UNC losing their previous offensive coordinator from 2022, I believe his name was Phil Longo, who went to Wisconsin, definitely took a huge toll on Drake Maye's production, and that's why we saw such a big dip in play. And even in 2022, he had some moments during that season when he was up and down. That's just the kind of player that you get with a guy like Drake Maye. You know, he's going to have some games like we saw out of Josh Allen when he had all those damn turnovers against the Denver Broncos. He has a reckless, chaotic playing style. Sometimes it allows him to make big plays, and sometimes it gets him into a lot of trouble. His footwork also is really, really inconsistent, but that can be improved. And if the footwork improves, then the erratic accuracy should improve too, because it's really weird how I can see this guy throwing 40-yard fade route, pretty much he's throwing fadeaway touchdown passes on one damn leg to that receiver number 5 that's in the draft. Can't think of his name because there's so many damn receivers this year, but he's throwing touchdowns that look so crazy to me. And then he has these weird, inconsistent accuracy problems when he's just throwing balls into the dirt. It's just really weird watching Drake Maye play sometimes. This dude is really chaotic, but I have a really strange obsession with watching him play, though. He's a really fun player to watch to me. And overall, I believe that Drake Maye is going to be a good starting quarterback in the National Football League, which means that he's going to be around the top 7, top 8 quarterback to top 12 QB. He could become elite, but he'll have some moments where maybe he'll have some big turnovers late in games that cost his team late, maybe cost them in the playoffs, and it'll just be some years where he just won't be considered an elite quarterback. And that's why overall, I think his career is going to project out for him just being a pretty good quarterback. You know, he could be a top 7 QB. Maybe he'll be an elite QB some years, but for the most part, he'll be a quarterback that you can win with. He'll be a Pro Bowl caliber starter, but maybe not be good enough to get you to a Super Bowl. His ceiling, if everything goes right, he goes to the right situation, good coaching staff, he could become one of the best in the game. There's not a single play that Caleb Williams can make that Drake Maye can't. Good size, 6'4", 223, great arm strength, good arm talent. His floor, average starter. If he doesn't succeed, I don't see him becoming completely garbage. I believe he could be a journeyman QB, maybe a quarterback that starts for several different teams, similar to what Baker Mayfield is right now. He'll have a few good years, a few okay years, maybe a few couple of high-end years, but overall, he'll have an average career. That's if everything goes wrong. That's my floor for him. So this is my scouting report, breakdown, and overall evaluation on Caleb Williams Drake Maye for this year. He is my 3rd ranked quarterback in this draft class behind Caleb and Jaden Daniels. As long as he doesn't go to New England, I think he's going to have a good career. If he goes to New England, I think he's cooked. And not just him, but any quarterback that gets drafted 3rd overall by New England, I don't see them having much success at all. Denver would be a great fit. Minnesota would be a fantastic fit for Drake Maye. New England would be a recipe for disaster. Bo Nix is really interesting. I remember when Bo Nix started his first ever game as a true freshman at Auburn years ago against Oregon, and he threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Darius Slayton, I believe it was. And everybody was just gassing his performance on social media. Cam Newton was giving him a lot of kudos. And I always felt like Bo Nix was super overrated watching him his first 2 seasons at Auburn. And his final season was actually pretty good. It's just the coaching staff failed him. He didn't have a good squad around him at all. He transfers to Oregon. And then all of a sudden, this dude has one of the biggest unforeseen college football career transfer portal turnarounds that we've ever seen. We all probably thought that Bo Nix could be decent at Oregon. But to go from a average to barely above average QB in the SEC to becoming a Heisman finalist is absurd. So I want to give you guys my prospect evaluation, breakdown, and scouting report on Bo Nix going into this year's draft. He's a really good quarterback prospect to me because, first of all, he has fast decision making. He is a really good quarterback when it comes to playing within structure. He has really good timing, throws with good accuracy and anticipation. When you watch him play, he gets going really fast. Oregon's offense, they don't take a lot of shots downfield, which is a big criticism of them because it holds back Bo Nix. But the fact that this offense, with the pace that they play at, it's kind of like he was playing point guard this year in the sense that Oregon this year. He's getting the ball out quick, hitting guys quick, intermediate, short. Then he'll throw a strike downfield. Bo Nix, with how fast he gets the ball out, he'll be a perfect fit in the timing-based offense. Let's say he gets drafted to a team that runs a Kyle Shanahan kind of offense with a lot of bootleg play action installed into it. He'll be a great fit in that. He'll be a great fit with Denver and Sean Payton. I would love to see Bo Nix go to Denver. He'll be such a great fit in that offense because he's already coming from an offense that in college made him get the ball out fast and make split decisions on the whim. He also is incredible throwing the football on the run. Like, it's just really fun to see what Bo Nix does when he gets outside the pocket. And he throws the football, to me, sometimes better outside the pocket than what he does in it. Throws with really good zip, velocity. If you are somebody who's looking for a quarterback that can create, buy time for guys to get open, maybe improvise, you don't have a good offensive line, Bo Nix is perfect for that kind of situation. He is going to have some moments where he does cost you a lot of yards trying to do too much, but he just throws the ball so well on the run. He just has a knack for making plays outside the structure. He also has really good arm strength, good velocity. He can make every single throw needed at the next level, tight window throws. He got good mobility. He was a really underrated athlete at Auburn. And even at Oregon, we still haven't seen just how truly good of an athlete he is because most of the times he was asked to throw the football. They called a couple of design QB runs for him, but at the next level, I would love to see his rushing ability utilized way more because he's a really good runner. He has a good blend of power and finesse. He can run through you with his stature and size, but he also can hit you with a spin move or a juke move too because he is agile. And even though he doesn't look the biggest on paper, this guy is pretty built in person. The big red flags with Bo Nix is that he has shaky pocket presence. Anytime I notice that his first read got taken away from him, and maybe his second read wasn't there too, he would kind of panic. But he kind of does have that one read tendency. You take away that first read, then he kind of struggles to figure out where to go next with the ball. He lacks poise under pressure. And the reasoning for him not being that great under pressure, I think, has a lot to do with the scheme and the style of offense that Oregon like to run. At the next level, they should have a lot more built in so he could make adjustments. But I don't see a quarterback that really looks that great when you have 300-plus pounders closing in on him. There definitely was a lot of throws that he missed anytime he was under duress. The two times they played Washington, and Washington was able to have success against Oregon's offensive line early, he struggled. And we haven't really seen a lot of Bo Nix and how good he is under pressure the 2 years that he spent at Oregon because Oregon's offensive lines have been so damn phenomenal. But against Washington, You kind of do see the shaky pocket presence and the inability to successfully handle pressure at times. His footwork isn't the greatest. It can be all over the place at times. And the scheme, we know that Oregon has the tendency to hold back quarterbacks with their offense. We saw it with Justin Herbert, and the same kind of could be said with Bo Nix, because it's kind of has that college gimmicky feel to it. Not a lot of NFL level concepts that we saw or we were able to see Bo Nix execute at an effective level at Oregon. But he did have a new offensive coordinator nearly every single year he played college football, going back to his first years at Auburn to his final years at Oregon. He had a new OC. So that's something that gives me a lot of confidence that Bo Nix can carve out a decent career in the NFL. When you have a guy that deals with so many staff changes and so much staff turnover like Bo Nix did at college, he should be able to learn the NFL playbook pretty fast, all right? And Oregon did give him a good amount of responsibilities at the line. His age is a pro and a con. On one end, you can say that excuse me, him being as old as what he is right now is a bonus because he has experience. You got somebody who should be able to start day one for you. But the downside is, by the time it's time for him to re-up on a new deal, get that first big contract extension, he's going to be 30 years old. So how long can this guy be your franchise QB? You don't know, but we've seen plenty of quarterbacks playing to their late to early 40s. His ceiling projects to be a really good starter. He could be a top 8, top 12 quarterback in the league, but I don't really think that he really has the skill set, at least right now, coming from Oregon to show me that he can be a consistent Pro Bowl caliber QB. I think he's going to be one of those QBs that you can win with as long as you have a good team around him and you got a good coaching situation. But if you're asking Bo Nix to have to overcome, not having a great receiving core or a great offensive line or run game, you can see that hinder his play. And his floor, if everything goes completely wrong, he could be a backup or a low-end starter. He could be a bridge quarterback. My comp for him, if he ends up being a bust or if he ends up just being, a disappointment, is Sam Darnold. They do have a lot of similar qualities. Sam Darnold was really good playing out of structure at USC, especially throwing outside the pocket. Bo Nix is a better athlete and has a better arm than Sam Darnold, but I don't think there's too big of a comparison between the two if we're looking for a low-end comp for Bo Nix. My high-end comp for Bo Nix, he could be Drew Brees with ×2 the mobility and arm strength. I really do like how fast he gets the ball out, his ability to process, even though he does get hung up on that first read from time to time. He does do a pretty good job at being able to make those full read progressions that is necessary to succeed in the National Football League. So ultimately, I expect him to be a first-round pick this year. He's my 4th-ranked quarterback behind Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake Maye. I project him to be a top 15 to top 18, 20-ish quarterback in the National Football League, which is good enough to win you some games. Maybe win you a playoff game or two if you have a great team. Maybe make a deep playoff run if you got a stacked team. But if you don't have a good team around Bo Nix, I don't see a quarterback that's good enough to elevate and turn around the franchise. He needs to go to an already established team with an already good staff, already made team like Minnesota, Denver. If he goes to New England, he's done. But that's any quarterback if they go to New England this year. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to dive into the JT Sports Mailbag. We're going to be answering viewer questions from you guys. If you want to get featured on the future episode of the JT Sports Mailbag, all you have to do is submit your questions on either of our social media platforms Instagram, you can find us at JT Sports _ or on X at JT Sports __. You can add us on X. You can DM us. Whatever, however you submit your questions, we will potentially see them. And maybe if they're good enough, feature them on a future mailbag segment. So in today's mailbag segment, the first question that we have up was from Instagram. Do you think that Brock Bowers might go to the Bengals? Cincinnati, with where they're picking at in this year's draft and the fact that there's a high chance that they're going to trade T. Higgins around that time, Brock Bowers would be the perfect replacement for T. Higgins. They are picking 18th. You could say, oh, JT, they got to go offensive tackle, but do they really? You just signed Trent Brown, who, yeah, he's not that great, but he's serviceable. He's definitely starting quality. And like left tackle, you have Orlando Brown, who you signed in free agency not too long ago. At this point, I'm looking at finding some more weapons, some more play workers for Joe Burrow, or play workers. I said play workers. I meant playmakers for Joe Burrow to get the football out to. Brock Bowers would be really unique in that Zach Taylor offense. You got a tight end who can not just line up and be a traditional tight end, but he can line up, be a slot receiver for you, an outside receiver for you. He's a good route runner. He gets off the line with ease. He's also a pretty good blocker in the run game. A lot of people criticize his run blocking. To me, I've always felt like Block Bowers, not Brock Bowers, Mr. Block Bowers has always been a pretty good factor in the Georgia run game. And I don't think that Georgia even allows you to get much playing time if you're not a good run blocker at the tight end position. Joe Burrow, you lose T. Higgins, you got to find a good replacement for him. And around the pick that you have at 18, Brian Thomas Jr. probably could still be on the board. You could have the chance of getting a A.D. Mitchell. But why get one of those guys when you can get a generational tight end prospect and Brock Bowers? Brock Bowers will have such a bigger impact on Cincinnati's offense than what a wide receiver would, which may sound crazy, but think about it. When you have a generational game-changing tight end, it's harder to stop that than it is to stop a game-changing receiver at times, because tight ends are too athletic for most linebackers to be able to cover. And they're also way too damn big in size and stature for defensive backs like corners and safeties to be able to hang with. You get somebody like Travis Kelce or Rock Gronkowski, Antonio Gates, they're glitches pretty much in real life. Just because you can line them up anywhere and they can be a mismatch. You keep them at tight end, no linebacker can keep up with them, no safety can cover them, and you line them out wide with their size and their physicality. Most cornerbacks aren't going to be able to handle that. You give Joe Burrow, Brock Bowers, you see how good Dalton Kincaid was last year. Brock Bowers could be better than that. He could have a better rookie season than what Sam Laporta had. Hell, we could see Brock Bowers put up the greatest rookie season ever for a first tight end in the National Football League. You're going to need to find that replacement for T. Higgins. You could try to roll the dice with how deep this receiver's class is and get his replacement in round 2, 3, or 4 and get an offensive tackle. But Brock Bowers, if he's still on the board at 18, or you have the opportunity to trade up for him, a lot of mock drafts don't really have him going in the top 10 unless they have him going to the New York Jets. So if he falls past the New York Jets, if you're Cincinnati, you see him still on the board around 14, 13, you should start fielding some phone calls to start trying to figure out how you can find a way to trade for this man. You need to find the replacement for T. Higgins. And you don't want to end up just drafting a wide receiver in the second round that ends up not working out just because this is a deep class. Just because it's a deep class doesn't mean that every receiver is going to hit. Brock Bowers is the equivalent to a receiver. He can do both, tight end and receiver. He's a better prospect than what Kyle Pitts is. We talk about how generational Caleb, Malik Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr. are, but Brock Bowers should be talked about way more than what he has. Cincy, will they be able to get him? I really do think that there's a chance they can. Realistically, though, I don't see him still being on the board at 18. It could be. He could be. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying that, he's just so good of a player. You look at the teams that are picking ahead of Cincinnati, you can say that they don't need a tight end, but you can also say that they should take the best player on the board, which would be Brock Bowers in that instance. What if the Chargers trade down from 5, which is a high possibility? They could get the 2 first-round picks that Minnesota has, and they definitely could take Brock Bowers at 11. And with Greg Roman being their offensive coordinator, how much he loves tight ends, it would make more sense for them to take Brock Bowers as their first pick in this year's draft than it would to take a receiver. That's what Greg Roman loves to do. He loves to get his tight ends involved in the passing game. So, shout out to my guy that submitted this question on the mailbag on Instagram. Make sure to give us a follow. Submit your questions there. We got another question. For the mailbag on Instagram. Who are the 3 most overrated and the 3 most underrated players in the draft, in your opinion? I'm going to start off with saying a name that a lot of people aren't really familiar with. But that's wide receiver Javon Baker. He comes from the University of Central Florida. This dude is the best kept secret in this draft class. All right, he is a top 6 receiver. He's my 6th ranked wide receiver in this year's draft class. He's a really good route runner. He has really good body control, which allows him to win a lot of 50 balls and a lot of contested catch situations consistently. He's just smooth. He's fluent. And he started his college career at Alabama. And he surprisingly transferred away from Alabama, which is a surprise to me because with how good he's been the last couple of years at UCF and with how lackluster the wide receiver position has been for Bama football the last couple of years, you would think, what the hell were they doing letting this guy just transfer out? Why wasn't he getting more opportunities? Because this dude was an absolute stud at UCF. And he's everything that you want and the number 1 wide receiver. Does he have anything that he does exceptionally well? Outside of having good body control, I think he's a really good all-around wide receiver. He's not great at one particular area, but he's good and polished at the majority of things that you're looking for out of a wide receiver. I'm trying to tell you guys, Javon Baker really should be a first-round pick. Truthfully, with how good he's going to be this season as a rookie, any team, if your favorite team drafts Javon Baker this year, just know that you're getting an absolute steal. If you're somebody that plays dynasty fantasy football or underdog fantasy, you need to be getting Javon Baker, bro. Great ball skills, good route runner, has a little bit of yak ability, fluid athlete. This is as good as an all-around wide receiver prospect as you're going to find for where he's expected to get drafted at. So Javon Baker, definitely an underrated wide receiver prospect that isn't getting enough love. You know who else isn't getting enough love, in my opinion? Spencer Rattler. Look, I get that how things ended at Oklahoma has left a bad taste in many of you guys' mouths. If you remember the quarterback docuseries that he was featured in when he was back in high school, he came out kind of as a jerk and an asshole. But the growth of Spencer Rattler from a character standpoint has been really big. South Carolina, that coaching staff, that team, that fan base, that community, they have nothing but positive things to say about Spencer Rattler's character. And he definitely carries himself way more humble, way more mature now than what he did a few years ago. That's what this is all about. When you first start college, you're young. You're growing up, you're maturing, you're learning how to become an adult. There's a reason why he was team captain for South Carolina. He also had a really good season last year. South Carolina just had a crappy team. If he played for Alabama possibly would have beaten Michigan. I felt like he was better than Jalen Milroe. He has really good accuracy. As a matter of fact, he had one of the highest on-target percentages in all of college football last year. He dominated the Senior Bowl. He was Senior Bowl MVP, really good pro day, good performance at the combine. He should be a second-round pick. But every time I see people making posts about Spencer Rattler, there's always a lot of haters in the comment section saying, oh, this dude is trash. He's overrated. Ain't this the dude who got benched for Caleb Williams? Yeah. So? Jalen Hurts got benched for Tua in the national championship years ago. And Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Tua in the NFL. So does it really matter if he got benched? It's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. That's what the transfer portal is about. Your first opportunity didn't go so well. So you got to transfer elsewhere and make the most of a better opportunity that you perceive for yourself. And Spencer Rattler did that. Going to South Carolina, he didn't win a lot of games, but the team just failed him. The offensive line instantly was allowing defensive linemen to get instant penetration damn near. Like, South Carolina's offensive line has been so bad for the last half a decade, it should be illegal. He didn't have no receivers. Juice Wells pretty much quit on the team during the season, and Leggett was all he had. Spencer Rattler needs some more respect. I think he's going to be one of the biggest steals in the draft, and I just saw a report that said the Rams were really interested in trading for Sam Howell. It's pretty obvious that the Rams are trying to find the successor for Matthew Stafford. He doesn't have too many years left. I believe Spencer Rattler could be that dude. Ricky Pearsall, we got another wide receiver that is going under the radar. Pretty Ricky at Florida. Didn't have top-notch production at UF, but that was because of QB play. Once he gets better quarterback play in the National Football League, he's going to be an instant stud. The question for me with Ricky Pearsall is, where is he going to play at the next level? Is he going to play in the slot? Can he play outside? He has great hands. He's a smooth, not even smooth, that's an understatement. He's a silky smooth route runner. He runs phenomenal routes. He creates a lot of separation when he gets open, really fluid in and out of his breaks. There's questions about his play strength. How good is he going to be against man coverage in the National Football League? I think he should hold up pretty well. He did really good during Senior Bowl week. Carolina, they should be the first team that should be interested in looking to draft Ricky Pearsall in rounds 2 or 3 whenever it's their turn to pick and they're on the board. He would be a great fit for Carolina. What was Carolina lacking last year? Wide receivers that know how to separate. Wideouts that can get open. Ricky Pearsall does that with ease. Hell, there was one catch that I saw him make, I believe it was against LSU or Kentucky, with damn near only 3 fingers. Silky smooth, route runner, really good, shifty after the catch. He's like a bigger version, but better version of Cole Beasley, if that makes sense. He's a better version of Cole Beasley. He's like the 2024 updated Cole Beasley. Better route runner, better hands, more athletic, stronger, faster, and has a possibility of being a really good slot receiver at the next level. So these are my 3 underrated prospects for the draft. But now I got to talk about my 3 overrated. We're going to start off with Xavier Worthy. This one is no secret to you guys. He's the most overrated prospect, in my opinion, in the draft. Yes, we know that the dude broke the combine record. Kudos to him for that. He is a really good route runner, and he is really good after the catch. But the problem is that he doesn't get off press coverage that consistently. He got bullied against Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold when Texas played Alabama. And you can say, oh, JT, look at the stats when they go up against Bama. He cooks Alabama every time they play. F the stats. F them. If you watch the tape, you will see the only time Xavier Worthy got open in that game was when Alabama played offense, when they didn't press him. Every time he got pressed, he struggled. Oh, well, JT, that's Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. They're going to be two potential first-round corners. Of course he's going to struggle. That's my point. Crazy? Repeat that again. He struggled against Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, two cornerbacks who expected to be first-round picks this year. If he's struggling against two projected first-round picks, what makes you think that he's not going to struggle against better cornerbacks in the National Football League? Everybody hates the Big 12 because they play no damn defense. You're going to give this dude all this props for making all these big plays against these Big 12 defenses? Cool, but where was this against Washington? Where was this when they were going up against press coverage against Alabama? I'm just saying. Xavier Worthy's size doesn't concern me. I'm the same person last year whose number one and number two wide receivers consecutively was Zay Flowers and Tank Dell. And you guys can go back and watch that. I got receipts for that. Tank Dell was my number two. Zay Flowers was my number one. And they were both incredibly undersized. Zay Flowers, 5'9", 182 pounds, but he was more built than what Xavier Worthy is. Tank Dell is 165 pounds. They say that Xavier Worthy is like 165 pounds. When I watch him, he looks like he's 155. You can't tell me that's not water weight. Now, will he be able to stay healthy at this size? I don't know, but if you can't get off the line against Alabama's cornerbacks, I don't see how you're going to be able to have a lot of success doing that in the National Football League. And I know that a player's success in the draft highly comes from where they get drafted to, but there's really only three places I think Xavier Worthy can go for him to actually have a good career in the NFL, because he has to go to an offense that can scheme him open. I don't think he's going to get open just by himself playing slide or outside, because he's super small and he doesn't do a good job getting off the line. Tank Dell was small, but you will rarely see anybody have success pressing Tank Dell. You press Tank Dell, you're going to regret it. Instant mistake. So Xavier Worthy, super overrated. The most overrated player in the draft this year. JJ McCarthy. I don't think the dude's going to suck, but I don't see any reason why a team like Minnesota should trade the farm to get him in the top 5 or even the top 10. I would not invest the top 10 pick in JJ McCarthy. The highest that I would draft JJ McCarthy is the top 20. That's it. And if you were to ask me where I would draft them personally, top 20 is still too high. I probably would take him in the second round. This dude is so overrated because Jim Harbaugh makes it seem like this dude is the greatest quarterback that ever touched the football since we last saw Andrew Luck. It's like Caleb Williams doesn't exist. Jaden Daniels doesn't exist. If J.J. McCarthy was that good, why didn't he win the Heisman? Why wasn't he better against TCU? Why wasn't he better against Alabama? Michigan won games because J.J. McCarthy was good enough. They didn't ask him to do a lot. Against Penn State, Chop Robinson was killing one of their offensive tackles, so they said, you know what? We're just going to abandon the passing game because we don't really need it anyway, and we're just going to run the ball 31 straight times to end the game. I find it hard to believe that Michigan just decided to run the football 31 straight times that game just because they couldn't trust one offensive lineman on their team. I think they couldn't trust J.J. McCarthy. And I think they just didn't trust J.J. McCarthy to be that kind of quarterback that can lead you to a game. He can be a good game manager, but people told the 49ers back in 2021 that they couldn't draft Mac Jones third overall because you can't draft a quarterback with that low of a ceiling, that high. So JJ McCarthy, if he's getting compared to Alex Smith, why is it that people are saying he should be a top 10 pick? That makes no sense to me. This is one of those instances where I believe the fans are going to get one over on the NFL executives. There seems to be this conception that just because these NFL executives are in the NFL and we're not, they know more than us. That's not the case a lot of the times. That's why these dudes get fired and they end up being in the same location we're at, on the damn couch. They get things wrong all the time. And J.J. McCarthy is going to be one of those, like Mitch Trubisky, like Deshaun Kaiser. We were telling these fools, don't draft them high. They draft them anyway, and they get fired. Troy Franklin, you talk about how overrated Xavier Worthy is. Troy Franklin takes the cake. People say, well, he has great size. The dude is 6'3", 176 pounds. That doesn't really look like a great profile when it comes to physical attributes at the next level. He also has good size, but he doesn't win contested balls as often as you would like. When you have that kind of size, that kind of frame, I need you to be more aggressive. I need you to be better at coming down with those 50-50 balls. He also has the issue with drops. He's a good route runner, but he's not good beating press coverage. And with that size, when he gets matched up against a Jalen Ramsey at the next level, he's going to get absolutely obliterated. There was a play against Washington where he got open because, he was able to beat press coverage when Washington got caught lacking playing cover 2. That was it. Like, I think that Troy Franklin has a lot of traits that translate to him being nothing more than just a really good deep threat, vertical deep threat. You just tell him to run post and 9 routes all day, and that's a large part of his game. He is really good after the catch, though, if you can find a way to get him the ball in space. He could be DK Metcalf, but without the freakish physical profile. He's not the easiest guy to bring down after the catch because he is fast. He does have really quick start acceleration. It's like as soon as he touches the football, it's off to the races with him. But I just don't see how this dude is going to be all that good. I think at most, he's a wide receiver 3 at best at the next level. I don't see him having that number 1 or wide receiver 2 upside just because he has an issue with drops. He doesn't really play up to his size. He's 176 pounds. The dude is built like a damn giraffe, for crying out loud, on the football field. And he does run good routes. He is a really good athlete, but I've seen a lot of wide receivers come out that have similar profiles to Troy Franklin who don't work out. So these are my 3 most overrated and underrated prospects in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of agreements in the comment section of this one. That's for certain. Another question that we have is from my guy, Market_Creators on Twitter. He asks, who's the biggest contract con artist in today's NFL as a QB? Watson, Wilson with the Broncos, Daniel Jones, Hurts. This is a really good question. So just who are the NFL's biggest scam artists right now? We got to start with Deshaun Watson. $230 million, fully guaranteed. He's the reason why these owners are going to be really reluctant to give fully guaranteed money to a black quarterback. Not trying to be racist about it, just being honest about it, man, because they paid Deshaun Watson all this money. They gave up the farm to get him, and he got outplayed by Joe Flacco, man. Deshaun Watson, his 2 best games have come against the Tennessee Titans and the 4th quarter against the Baltimore Ravens last season. That was it. The Cleveland Browns have been getting scared by Deshaun Watson because they thought that trading for Deshaun Watson was going to be the missing piece to help propel them to becoming a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And ever since they've made this trade, it looks like an even bigger mistake, not just making the trade, but making the decision to replace Deshaun Watson with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was better this past season, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers than what Deshaun Watson has been with the Cleveland Browns and the few amount of action that he's played with this team. And that's another problem with the Cleveland Browns. You barely see him in fucking action. The dude gets injured so damn much, and he isn't the same quarterback now that he used to be when he was playing for the Houston Texans. I don't know what happened to this dude. And I'm not saying this dude is a bad person. I'm not trying to crap on him as on an individual because we never will know the truth to the situation. All I'm going to say is this. There were a lot of accusations that came out against him, man. And it's a numbers game with me. Not saying that he was guilty of all of them. You're guilty. You're only innocent until proven guilty, and he hasn't been proven guilty of any wrongdoing. But I'm just saying, it's a numbers game. I'm going to leave it at that. Take with that information as you will, but it's a numbers game. A lot of numbers out there, and the numbers overwhelmingly say, this dude was doing some wrong. You feel me? So the Cleveland Browns, you thought that you were going to get a quarterback that was good enough to take you to being a Super Bowl contender, but all you've been is pretty much stuck in the same situation that you were when you had Baker Mayfield, a good middle-of-the-pack team that can get to the playoffs, maybe win in the wild card round, but you're not going to make it any further than the divisional round. And what scares me is that Joe Flacco played better than this dude, man. The dude that we haven't heard from in years comes off the couch and all of a sudden is better than the dude the Browns are forking out $230 million fully guaranteed to. Deshaun Watson is the reason why these owners are going to think twice about paying quarterbacks that have this dual threat label fully guaranteed money. You see, Jalen Hurts didn't get a fully guaranteed deal. Neither did Lamar. I believe Deshaun Watson is a big reason for that. Daniel Jones, come on, man. We all knew when the New York Giants decided to extend Daniel Jones last offseason, it was a huge mistake. We all knew it. It was the equivalent to when the Jacksonville Jaguars decided to give Blake Bortles an extension after he helped them get to the AFC Championship. You see, Daniel Jones is a quarterback that is only as good as the team around him. You have to do way too much for this guy to be good. And the only reason he looked decent in 2022 and he led them to a win in the wild card round over the Minnesota Vikings, who were the most overrated team in NFL history based on record, was because the Giants didn't really play any good teams. And anytime they did play good teams, they weren't really all that great. Because you saw they got the shit kicked out of them the following week against the Philadelphia Eagles. And every time the New York Giants play against good teams, it's just a one-sided affair. Mainly because you don't have a good quarterback. Daniel Jones, there just was no reason to pay him. There was no team in free agency that was going to give him the kind of contract that the New York Giants gave him. And reportedly, the owners wanted to keep Daniel Jones around because he reminds them a lot of Eli Manning. They look at him in the face and they saw Eli Manning. They saw the dude who was able to beat the GOAT 2 times in the Super Bowl. They saw one of the better playoff quarterbacks in NFL history when they looked at Daniel Jones in the face. You mean to tell me Daniel Jones isn't one of the biggest scam artists in the NFL right now? Because he has to be. Him and Deshaun Watson are jockeying for the title of the best scam artists in the NFL right now, because they both making it look really good right now, doing it fairly easy. I mean, goodness, bro. How big of a scam do you have to be to fool a team this badly, bro? They just gave this fool an extension last offseason. Now they're contemplating drafting a quarterback at 6. They took J.J. McCarthy out to a private dinner. Do you not know how insane this is? You taking J.J. McCarthy and these other QB prospects out to private dinners when you just gave Daniel Jones an extension last offseason. That is insane. And I know Daniel Jones ain't caring because, he's scamming them. What do you expect? He's getting $40 million a year. $40 million a year. And he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Like, the dude is a low-end starter. No way in hell should a guy like him be making this kind of money. And that's why the Giants are trying to find a way to make the most out of this situation. Because they definitely effed up when they paid him. They effed up the moment they thought it was a good idea to give him that money. And the day he put that pin to the dotted line, yeah, that's instantly when the Daniel Jones heist reached all-time peaks. I can't believe this, man. And they do got a potential out. But even in the potential out, they're still going to be taking a big hit to the chin, man. Jalen Hurts. It seems like every time you pay these dual-threat quarterbacks, other than Lamar Jackson, they always disappear. Jalen Hurts, man, he has to be the most overhyped quarterback in the league right now. At one point last season, people consider him to be the front runner for MVP when his stats were largely inflated thanks to the quarterback tush push or the QB sneak. The dude got outplayed by Drew Lock. I'll never forget that. Monday Night Football, Drew Lock engineers a 92-yard, 10-play game-winning touchdown drive. Unbelievable. Jalen Hurts not just got outplayed by Drew Lock, but he got outplayed by Baker Mayfield, man. Who saw that coming? And you can say, oh, JT is one season. Like, we saw Jalen Hurts go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Yeah, that was when they had Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen, the same dude who nearly made it to the playoffs with Gardner Minshew being his starting quarterback for the majority of the season. The same dude who took the quarterback who had the boom or bust label on Anthony Richardson and had him balling, playing better than what he ever did at Florida. Yeah, that was the dude who was calling the plays for Jalen Hurts. Also was the same guy who was the offensive coordinator for Justin Herbert his rookie season, which is the second best rookie season in NFL history behind what C.J. Stroud just did. Everywhere Shane Steichen goes, success seems to follow him. We seen Jalen Hurts the first season without Shane Steichen, and you know Jalen Hurts is the 6th highest paid quarterback in the National Football League, right? Didn't look like it last year. When you're one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the game, you're supposed to elevate your team. You're supposed to be able to elevate the dude calling the plays. You can turn a bad play call into a good play call, and a good play into a great play. Because that's what great quarterbacks do. They have the ability to elevate. They can do more with less. I didn't see that out of Jalen Hurts. Was he playing through some injuries? Yes, he was. Did he have his moments? Like in the second half against the Bills and the Chiefs? Yes, he did. But after that 10-1 start, boy, it was real scary. Real scary. And I picked the Buccaneers to win in that wild card game. But then I changed my mind the last 5 minutes of the game because I was like, you know what? There's no way Jalen Hurts is going to lose to the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. No way. Jalen Hurts, the dude who went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl last year, is going to go out losing to Baker Mayfield. He went out losing to Baker Mayfield. Don't care about the injuries because Baker Mayfield is playing through an injury too. Everybody's injured late in the season. It comes down to who wants it more, who has more grit. If it wasn't for all those tush-push touchdowns, man, Jalen Hurts' 2023 campaign wouldn't be looking all that good. I like Jalen Hurts. I still think that he can shake back, but he may not be as good as what we may have thought he was after that Super Bowl performance against Patrick Mahomes when they lost that game. Now, Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts, who's next on the list, man? Ooh, Derek Carr. Derek Carr, he's not as big as a scam artist as Jalen Hurts and Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. But I mean, they're paying this dude a lot of money to just be an average quarterback, to just be a check down Charlie. Derek Carr doesn't push the football downfield. He doesn't take a lot of shots pushing the football vertically downfield. Also, he's just one of those QBs that, he's just going to take what the defense gives him. And that's the problem when you go up against the elite defense. Because when you do face the elite defense, your offense has no chance in hell. They got a really young, nice, up-and-coming offensive coordinator that they hired to replace their previous OC and Pete Carmichael, who was with the franchise since Sean Payton first arrived to NOLA in 2006. And I do agree that Pete Carmichael's play calling was not good. But Derek Carr, all the dude does is throw checkdowns to Alvin Kamara and occasionally hit Chris Olave on a deep ball downfield. But when Jameis Winston was in for the limited action that he was in the game for and replaced the Derek Carr when he was dealing with his injury problems, the Saints offense was way more explosive. More turnover prone, absolutely, but more explosive. If your offense can have that level of explosiveness out of Jameis Winston, your backup, and you can't get that out of Derek Carr, that's problematic. If I'm paying this quarterback this amount of money, which, isn't a lot compared to the current state of the quarterback market in the NFL, but Derek Carr doesn't elevate New Orleans. Derek Carr was signed with the thought that he was the missing piece. He would be the answer to New Orleans quarterback problems. He will help stabilize the quarterback position and lead them to the playoffs. Bro, he got outplayed by Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was playing on a vet minimum last year, man. Are you kidding me? You really mean to tell me that Derek Carr isn't scamming the Saints right now? You thought that their general manager, Mickey Loomis, gave Derek Carr this contract with the thought of, we're going to pay all this money for you to get outplayed by Baker Mayfield. Are you kidding me? Bro, if you don't think that Derek Carr is scamming the Saints, I don't know what to tell you. But it's pretty obvious he is. He easily should have been the best quarterback in the NFC South last year. Why do you think some people were saying that the Saints were dark horse Super Bowl contenders? Because they had Derek Carr. You look at that division and you go, bro, they easily have the best quarterback. No way they don't win that division. No way. They had the best team, best quarterback, and still didn't win the division and still missed the playoffs because of Mr. Checkdown Carr. There's a reason why the Raiders got rid of him. And I think that you Saints fans are going to start seeing more and more of the reasons why Josh McDaniels and Las Vegas gave Derek Carr the pink slip. He's not that good of a QB. He's not going to lose you games, but he's not going to win you a lot of games. And lastly, you can't have a biggest scam artist list without including Dak Prescott, man. You talk about somebody who is scamming their franchise, somebody who has their team down to their knees at the beg of any of their commands. It's Dak Prescott, bro. Like, he runs Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, for the first time ever, it seems like the Dallas Cowboys are willing to kind of test the waters a little bit with Dak Prescott and risk the possibility of him hitting free agency if he has another good year this season. And the problem with Dak Prescott that makes him such a scam artist is that this is what he's going to do. He's going to have another good regular season campaign. You feel me? He's going to be in the MVP discussion, and then he's going to stink it up in the playoffs. And then he's going to ask to be paid like one of the highest quarterbacks in the game because he's going to say, I was an MVP candidate. I played at a high level during the regular season. You cannot pay me what I'm not asking for because I'm producing. And you never know. I could always figure it out in the playoffs. We've seen guys like Joe Flacco win. Why do you think I can't get it done? Maybe it's a you problem and not a me problem. Dak Prescott could hit the Cowboys with that. But no matter what, the Cowboys are just going to be in a bad position when it comes to Dak Prescott, because he's a good enough quarterback that it's hard to find a good replacement for him unless you just roll the dice and gamble that the dude you see in the draft or the dude who's behind Dak Prescott is going to be better. But the problem with keeping Dak Prescott is that you reach a certain ceiling with Dak Prescott. No matter how good Dak is, once you get to the playoffs, you're going to be an early exit. The furthest you're going to get with Dak is the divisional round. That's it. And when you're paying somebody 50 to 60 million a year, I need you to be good enough to lead me to a Super Bowl. I can't be making you one of the highest paid quarterbacks and you don't play like one in the postseason. Does that make any sense? Like, it makes no sense how Dak Prescott could end up being one of the highest paid quarterbacks again, making anywhere between 53 to 60 million a year. He'll be getting more than Josh Allen and maybe Lamar Jackson next year with what he could potentially be making. And yet, the Cowboys are going to be forking over elite quarterback money to a quarterback that's not elite. They're going to be forking out, paying elite quarterback money to a quarterback that's not elite. Dak Prescott could be getting more than Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow potentially. With the extension, that could be record-setting. But he's not in the same tier of any of those guys, but he's going to get paid like one. This is the NFL's biggest scam artist right now, people. The quarterbacks that are scamming their current franchises. Dak Prescott. We got Jalen Hurts, Derek Carr. We got Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. They should have signed them for them dimes. And Deshaun Watson. Who got left off this list of quarterbacks that are scamming their current franchises right now? Leave your comments down in the comment section down below. Who was on this list? Who shouldn't be on this list? Do you think that Derek Carr isn't scamming the Saints? Are you crazy and think that Deshaun or Danny Dimes aren't scamming their teams? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section down below. And we got one more question. We got a question from YouTube. My guy Kendrick Moore 704 asks, what's your analysis on Todd Monken? Start that over. Start the end point from here. We got another question from my guy Kendrick Moore 704 on YouTube. He asked, what's your analysis on what Todd Monken can do with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson? Because playing in them and Madden, or playing with them in Madden, is a cheat code. NFL, watch out. Shout out to you. Keep doing your stuff. Big fan. Appreciate your question. Kendrick Moore 704. Man, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield, bro. How are you going to stop this? You already had a hard time trying to stop Lamar Jackson. Now you have Todd Monken, who has helped Lamar Jackson take that next step as a passer. And now it's pick your poison with Lamar. Are you going to try to stop his running ability and try to force him to beat you from within the pocket because he can do that? Or are you going to try to force him to beat you with his legs by trying to get him outside of the pocket, throwing on the move because he can beat you that way also? Now you got to try to find a way to stop this monster truck at running back and Derrick Henry. I saw Braylon Allen post a picture on Instagram a few days ago with Derrick Henry. He was saying, I promise you, bro, I'm pretty big too. But Derrick Henry is just a man amongst boys, man. And I don't see how any team is going to be able to stop the Ravens offense this year. Like, truthfully. Hell, I felt last off season, the Baltimore Ravens going into the 2023 NFL year, we're going to have the best offense in the NFL. If you thought Baltimore's offense was good last year, I don't even think that they have reached their potential. Because when you have Lamar Jackson, who is just so unstoppable at times, like it's hard to get him off the field in third down situations because he's going to beat you with his arms and his legs. So when you have Lamar Jackson being able to just beat you any kind of way with his legs or his arm, how should you at any point have to punt the football? You should be scoring on every possession, like how you do in Madden. When you play the right person online in Madden that knows what they're doing with Lamar Jackson, they damn near could put 70 on you. And there's nothing that you could do to stop it. That's what should be happening this season with Derrick Henry on the squad, bro. Like, you already got to worry about Lamar and the speed that he has when he gets out to the edge. Now, you got to worry about not allowing Derrick Henry to run over your whole entire defense. Like, if I'm a defensive coordinator, game planning for the Baltimore Ravens made me going from getting barely any sleep to now having to pop a 5-hour energy to pull an all-nighter to find a game plan, to find a good way to slow down this Ravens offense. Because you got Derrick Henry, Lamar in the backfield. You got Lamar as a QB throwing the football with Zay Flowers coming into his own, Mandrews, Isaiah Likely. Please tell me, how are you going to stop this? How are you? Now, as a Steeler fan, I'll say this. Derrick Henry may be running over everybody, but he ain't going to be running over Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen will meet Derrick Henry at the hole for sure. Trust me, Patrick Queen, you looking for somebody who ain't going to be scared, who's going to throw his body on the line to stop Derrick Henry? It will be Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen is the only player that I really feel is going to be able to have a big impact on stopping Derrick Henry. You may think that Derrick Henry is washed up, he's starting to regress, but he is at that age that Father Time starts to knock on the door and come to collect the souls of running back careers in the league. But don't forget that Derrick Henry is a Hall of Fame caliber player. And I tell you guys this all the time. Hall of Fame caliber players regress at a slower rate than your average player. You can't compare Derrick Henry and his potential fall off to the rest of other running backs that are in the league because he's not like everybody else. He's run. He's probably the best running back of this generation. He's a future first ballot Hall of Famer. He still has 2-3 years of high-end level play. You see, the reason why the Ravens lost to Patrick Mahomes is because they forgot to run the fucking football. How do you give your running backs only 6 carries in the biggest game of the season? You're 1 game short of making it to the Super Bowl, man. And T-Money, who's been calling money plays all year long, he was throwing out pennies in the AFC Championship against Kansas City, boy. What was the point of signing Dalvin Cook? I swear, man, I've never seen the team just willingly throw a game away like how the Baltimore Ravens did against Kansas City. Now that you have Derrick Henry, there's no way you're ever going to have to worry about, if you're a Baltimore fan, the Ravens getting away from their bread and butter running the football. If we ever see a game out of Todd Monken where he only gives Derrick Henry 6 carries or less, he should be fired. And I love T-Money, but Derrick Henry needs to at least be getting 10 to 15 carries a game. No excuse. Anything less than that is a fireable offense. Derrick Henry should make the Ravens offense unstoppable. Like, he was the final stone that the Ravens needed to complete the Infinity Gauntlet. Now that you have Derrick Henry, you have a big difference maker that could help you maybe get past that hump that you're having of trying to get past Mahomes and getting to that Super Bowl. You may say that the running back position doesn't have that big of an impact, but I'll digress on that. Look at Christian McCaffrey. Every running back doesn't have that big of an impact that McCaffrey has. Derrick Henry is one of them. You get Derrick Henry on your team if you're Baltimore, he definitely makes you the second favorite to get out of the AFC this year behind Kansas City. The only question is now, Lamar, can he step up? Can he improve his game? Can he elevate the Ravens in the fourth quarter to a Super Bowl? That's the question, because we know Derrick Henry's going to handle his end of the deal. he might have 1,400 yards this year. You may see the best year that you've ever seen from a running back of Derrick Henry's age. And I'm a Steelers fan saying this. I'm putting all my bias aside. Like, I'm kind of excited to see what Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield are going to do, man. Two of the scariest backfields next season. Derrick Henry, Lamar, and Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. Ooh. We got to talk about Anthony Richardson, too. That's a conversation for another day. But this is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in to this episode. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Remember that we're not just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast. You can find this episode and all the other ones in audio format on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. If you listen to podcasts, do yourself a favor. Subscribe to the JT Sports Podcast. Give us a 5-star review. If you like the podcast and you want to support us, the best way to do so is by giving us a 5-star review. You guys don't know how much that helps us out. Follow us on Instagram and X. If you have a question that you would like featured on our mailbag episodes or on our mailbag segments, you can send them or add them on Instagram at JT Sports _ and on X at JT Sports __. Submit your NFL draft, college football questions in the mailbag on Instagram and X. And man, it's crazy, bro, because every day we come one day closer to the final live stream of the JT Sports Podcast from the college dorm, man. And we're getting really close. My graduation is less than a month away. I'm really nervous but excited at the same time because I really want to do this YouTube content creator stuff full time. I'm putting in a lot of effort to do so, and I plan on going live 3 more times throughout this week. We're going to be going live Wednesday. We're going to be going live Thursday with my dude College Football with Sam, talking some college football. And we're going to be going live Friday as well. For the remainder of the month, we're probably going to be talking a lot of the NFL draft. Probably won't be talking that much college football. We're not going to abandon college football completely. I definitely do plan on uploading like top 10 coaches rankings and things like that. But for the foreseeable future, for the remainder of this month, man, we got to talk about the NFL draft because, you know, it's just around the corner. That's what a lot of you guys want to see. But to all my college football audience out there, you guys know we don't abandon college football. You guys know I'm as big as a college football fan as anybody else. It's just that, you know, when the draft is around the corner, you got to prioritize relevance. And, you know, the draft is super relevant right now, so we got to talk about that. College football, you know, the transfer portal is about to pick back up, so we'll get back to college football in a couple of weeks. We're not abandoning it. You know, we're still going to talk college ball, but we just aren't talking college football as frequently as what we normally do because we have to replace that with draft talk. So I appreciate everybody that tuned in into tonight's episode on YouTube on the live stream. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to my guy K Roan. Shout out to my guy Dubs 800. I appreciate everybody that's been rocking with the channel, man. If you want to support us, all we ask is that you please give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, man. Like, you guys don't know how big it is for you guys to give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. It helps us out a lot. Appreciate you guys for tuning into this